there's a lot of talk about precedents, about what Trump is doing. He continues to move 100 miles an hour. Doge, the firing of different federal agency employees. In some instances, now they're quickly rehiring people because they seem to, realize, oops, wait, we do need that person. But the Supreme Court agreed now, or a case has reached the Supreme Court on the president's power to fire the I think it's the Inspector General, kind of writ large. Obviously, Sean, there's your case of Spicer versus Biden and the Kennedy Center. Stepping out from each of these, the bigger picture here, the power, the executive branch power to kind of police itself. How do you see this?
Well, first, on the court front, I can't imagine. Look, there's a nuance in the inspector generals in particular. They're supposed to be given 30 days notice and have a material reason for firing them and notify Congress. So I could see in that case the court kind of trying to carve out a niche that says the president has the power to do that. But in this particular case, they might find some nuance that says, but he didn't follow the procedure. So we're saying that the president can do it. He needs to go back, give them 30 days notice, and tell Congress he's firing. I could see a scenario where the court affirms that position. But the bottom line is, and I think Elon said this really well in the Oval the other day, at some point we elect the head of the executive, the presidency. The bureaucracy doesn't get to dictate what happens. We have an election, consequences happen. And if the president of the United States gets to shape the executive, that's just a fact, right? It's sort of like saying the Speaker of the House can't determine what bills come up on the floor of the House. You elect a speaker to perform certain functions, same way you elect a president to run the executive branch. So I have a feeling the court is going to affirm this, and that will go that. You mentioned the case. It was a really funny story. I wrote this op-ed. I mentioned this, a few weeks ago in the New York Post about Spicer v. Biden and why President Trump had all this power. And then this just tells you how funny this stuff is. In the course of the editing process, the New York Post editor says to me, what other commissions are there that this would, like, because maybe not everyone's familiar with the Service Academy. And so I have a list of all the commissions and boards, and I start reading off a list like, oh, there's this. And they mention, oh, the Kennedy Center. Everyone knows what that is. So I put that in the op-ed. Well, then when President Trump fires everyone at the Kennedy Center is asked, why are you not pushing back? And they say, on the record, because of Spicer v. Biden. Well, the reporter then from the Washington Post calls me and goes, do you realize that people are now citing your case as a reason why the President Trump has the authority to fire them? And I was like, no kidding. The Post reporter says, you didn't know that? And I'm like, it's not like I follow the Kennedy Center spokesman on Twitter or something. So he goes, oh my God, like he reads the course, the court stuff. He calls me back the next day and he said, you do realize how big this is. And we're now writing it. So that precipitated that story that aired, like, was on the front page of the style section on Saturday. But it's the thing that I found funny, Dan, and I normally don't do this, but I kind of wanted to, I was on a plane long enough that I wanted to, like, it's the equivalent of, what do they call it? Hate watching, but I hate read the comments. And all these people are like, this was so petty. Like, what, first of all, what was petty? I didn't do this. Biden fired me. All I did was go to court to say he didn't have the right to do that. The Biden administration argued in court through the appeals process that they had the absolute right to do this. And now everyone gets pissed that President Trump is using that as the precedent to do this. It would have never happened if Biden hadn't been as petty as he had. So I see this over and over again where everyone gets mad that President Trump is doing something when Biden started it. Like, they're like, oh, he took away Biden's security clearance. Yeah, Biden did it to him. You can't get pissed at him for what he started.
Well, and that's, I think, the thing that I would just, highlight is what seems to be kind of we're inching toward is, for the last 30 years, chief executive officers, the president, have increasingly been arguing that congressional restraints on how the executive branch kind of governs itself, how it polices and oversees itself, there are no constraints, right? It would be like the executive branch telling Congress, these are the rules for how you have to operate and how you can fire your own employees. And it seems to be that increasingly the courts are of, agreement. And we'll see with this.
Well, there's two issues here, right? There's the legal point that you're talking about. Do they have the right to do it? And then in some of these cases, like the Kennedy Center, it's the tradition, right? I don't know that anyone would have argued that the president can't appoint certain people. But what Biden did was twofold. One, he broke tradition. No one had ever been fired before this. If you read the story, they fired me on September 1st, 2021, and my term ended November 1st.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
They
so
just wanted to fire you. Yeah.
They did. Yeah, it was sort of like, so, which I get, that's fine. Okay, we went to court. He has the right to do it. I accept the court's ruling, and I love the court's ruling for that matter.
But then you
there's
can't
a difference between the
complain that-
tradition and the legal. But the problem that I find is so funny is that the answer keeps, and this is where the right, and this is where the right, I'm so glad that President Trump is standing up. For so long, the answer was the left's going to punch you. And then your answer is, okay, look the other way when we got back in power. That was what we were always told. We're bigger, we're better, we don't. But at some point, this gets back to the message arc that I was talking about. Why are we the ones that always have to turn the other cheek? At some point, we need to stand up on the right and do our thing. And I'm proud that President Trump is doing this.
It's so funny because on the left, they always see it the same way. The right punches and punches and we get walked over. And so, but I think we both agree. Both parties continue to set precedents. And then when the other does it, it's like, oh my God.